Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Saturday morning mini class today. Seems like yesterday and today we're on a theme for some pop-up cards, but this one I'm going to show you a little twist using some acetate to create more of an invisible look. So it'll look like your little things are floating and flying. In the email, I had suggested having, butterflies or flowers. I'm actually going to use a ladybug today. And ironically, if you saw me up close, I am wearing a ladybug t-shirt today as well. That was, excuse me, not intentional, but clearly in my subconscious, I was thinking about ladybugs. So I'm excited to bring this card to you guys today. As always, as you're listening, please feel free to unmute your microphones and ask any questions that you may have. If you're watching on replay, simply pause and rewind. This will get uploaded to YouTube probably fairly soon after I finish this video. My son, who was helping me, is now out in BC, so I can't ask him to upload anymore. It's all on me. Good thing I've learned the technology. All right, so today we are creating a beautiful pop-up card with an invisible element, and it's going to be far easier than you would even think. I have cut some paper for the inside of my card just to create a basic background. Now you can do any size of card you want. I'm doing a basic A2, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. It is going to be landscape in orientation and open up this way. So if you are cutting your pattern paper to create your background, I did 2 layers just because this is, I've just started liking the idea of having a double mat on the inside. So my ladybug piece is 4 by 5 1/4, and you can go ahead and cut 2 pieces that side if you wish. And then I've done one just a little bit bigger, so it's 1/8 of an inch bigger. It is, now let me remember the numbers, 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Just so you get that nice little border. Oh, my camera's not focusing. Let's see if I can bring it down a little bit. But that's going to give me just my nice little border here and still leave a little bit of white border on that card. So I'm going to just quickly grab my adhesive, get those pieces into place so that we can then work on our mechanism, because that's really where the magic happens. And at the end, we'll go back and decorate the front of the card as well, just so it all coordinates. Today, I am using the Fern and Willard, the one that I usually call Phineas and Ferb, just because I can't seem to get my head straight around this. It's this beautiful springy paper line from Photoplay. And again, when I had the idea of using ladybugs, I wanted to make sure I used that ladybug paper. And I'm also using this green. I don't know if you can see it well in the camera. It's got kind of like little foliage pieces on it to just create some dimension. So in case you need me to repeat those measurements again, the ladybugs is 4 by 5 1/4. The mat behind it is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. You don't need to do the double layer if you don't want to. I just like that extra little bit of color behind it. And yeah, my adhesive just ran out. Good thing I have backup. Never fails. And worst case, I am in a craft store, so I can always grab some extra. All right, so now my backgrounds, doesn't matter. It's nicely random, so it doesn't really matter if one guy is upside down. Don't think it matters. All right. So now my inside of my card is all ready to go. The other piece I'm going to prep just so that it is handy and ready when we've got it is my acetate. I want this to be, let's start with 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. We may find we want to trim it down once we get it into the card. So I'm just going to trim this down. This is our magic piece, the piece that's going to create all the oohs and the ahs. So I'm going to do 4 1/4 here. Put that off to the side by 5 1/2. If I'm going too fast, ladies, please don't hesitate to ask me to slow down. I do also have the chat box open so you can type it in if you'd rather not speak it. Okay, so my acetate is now ready, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm going to put it right here in front of me on my tripod. You guys can't see it, but hopefully I don't lose it. That's always my challenge with acetate and things like that, is because you can't see it, it gets lost in the pile. Okay, mechanism time. I had asked you to cut a piece of cardstock that was 3 inches by 5 1/2. And let me just double check I've cut mine properly. Absolutely. Once you learn this mechanism, you can always play with these measurements. I'm just creating a little, basically a little stand that's going to go in the center of my card to hold that piece of acetate standing straight up. If you prefer, if you didn't want to do these pattern pieces, you could absolutely extend this piece out and play with your score lines to cover that whole area. But I kind of like the idea of the contrast as well between the pattern paper and the cardstock. So this will just give us a good idea. And then you can play and adjust as needed. So time for your scoreboard. Get that out. And I'll move my dies off to the side so we've got some more room. And I am taking my piece of cardstock and I'm going to put it in vertically. Again, if you decided that you were going to cover the whole area, I think in my head I was figuring you could do it with an 11-inch piece. That is 5 by 5 1/2. If you're doing that for scoring, what I would do is start in the middle and move out. But because we're going to do nice and even, all we're going to do is do score lines 1/2 inch all the way across. All right, so I've got my 3-inch piece vertical. I'm going to score at 1/2 inch. I'm going to score at 1 inch, 1 1/2, 2, and 2 1/2. Pretty simple. And that is all the scoring that we need to do to make our mechanism. So your scoreboard can now tuck away. We're now going to fold along our score lines, and we basically want to do opposite. So this piece here, this first scored little panel, I'm going to call it, is we want it to go flat because it's going to attach to our card. So our first score line, we are going to, I'm going to turn it horizontal just so I can fold it easier. I'm going to fold it up and over. Then I'm going to come back to myself on the next one. Go up and over again. So we're basically creating that little accordion pleat. So now you've got a zigzag. I don't want to call it a W because it's got an extra bump, but you do want that center bump coming downwards. All right, let us flip it over and then fold it flat just because we're going to put some score tape in place. Do I have Just going to grab a pencil. This is just for me to show you where we're going to put tape. We are going to put a piece of tape on the two outside panels. I don't know if you can even see that. And then on the two next inside panels. The remaining two panels are going to have no tape whatsoever. So I've just got my 4 tape. You could use liquid glue for this as well. If you're doing liquid glue, only do the second ones to begin with, because we're going to start with that. But if you're doing tape, you might as well tape them all at the same time. I'm just running my tape down the center of that panel. And the next one. So the back of your panel should look like this. 1, 2 with tape, 1, 2 without, 1, 2 with. Now we're going to flip it over right side, and only the two center ones are going to get tape. So it's the opposite of what we had on the back side. And this will all come clear as we, hey, no pun intended, as we start adding our acetate and start building our card. I do recommend the score tape when you're doing the acetate because then it won't slide as much, but if all you have is liquid, that's not a problem. Okay, back over to the back side. The second inside panel, we are going to remove that tape and stick it down to what I'm going to call the naked side. So we're going to just fold it in towards the center like so. So now you've just got this little panel showing. Same with the other side, that lid keeps rolling. And fold it in on itself. So now those two outside ones have come together and you've got kind of this plus sign showing. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to attach our acetate. So this is where we have to do a bit of a dry run. That's going to go over top of the fold. Our acetate's going to go in the middle. So my width is good. I'm happy with that. But I think just to make sure it stays hidden, I'm going to trim 1/2 inch off the top. So if you have written down your measurements, your final measurements for this acetate are going to be 3 3/4 by 5 1/2, not 4 1/4. I just wanted to do that little dry run to make sure that it was all going to fit properly. So 3 3/4. Trim that 1/2 inch off. Now I will warn you, some brands of acetate will have a layer of film on the acetate. So if you have not already removed that, this one doesn't seem to have it. Make sure you do that now, because once we get it stuck in here, you're not going to be able to do it afterwards. And the last thing I'm going to do before we assemble this is I'm going to round my top 2 corners just so that it's not so pokey and it gives it a nice little finish. Okay, I don't think you can see this very well. I've got rounded corners on my top, flat corners or pointy corners on my bottom. This is going to now sandwich in between our middle fold panels. And we do need tape on both sides because it's going to come up and squish that acetate, and you do want it to stick on both sides. So I'm going to peel the tape. Peel the tape, take my acetate, put it right into the fold, and squish. Give it a good burnish with your fingers just to make sure all those areas get flattened. And now you have almost like a little windshield. This is our invisible mechanism that's going to go inside. So one last step, and then it's all down to decorating. We now have 2 pieces of tape left. I'm going to fold them up. And I'm only going to peel one to start because I want to get it in place before I attach the other side. So sticky side down, we want to be close to the fold, but because there's a lot of thickness now with all of these layers of cardstock, you don't want to be too deep in the fold or it's not going to close properly. So I'm actually going to line up my mechanism with the edge of my pattern paper, not the green paper, the pattern paper. If I can get it. Like so. And that way, when that closes over, it's still going to be a little bit bulky. And it looks like I am not quite straight because it's hanging over a little bit here, but I can always trim that with my scissors afterwards. So to finish and close, I'm just going to peel this last piece of tape and smoosh it down. Start from the center and move your way out. And voila, when the person opens the card, oh, how come mine's not? There we go. That invisible mechanism is going to pop right up. All good? I'm seeing some nodding heads and some thumbs up. That's fantastic. And you know what? I'm kind of thinking this is probably a good thing that we haven't decorated the front. I think if I flip it over, it's going to pop up a little bit better. So that's one reason to not do the front until the end. That way you can figure out which one is really the front. Okay, now the fun part is the decorating. So I have decided to use this butterfly. I think it's called, and I said butterfly, I meant ladybug. This ladybug die from Lawn Fawn. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's this beautiful little paper piecing butterfly. Oh my goodness, need more coffee. I've only got water. Sorry, I'm using ladybugs. If you want to use butterflies, if you want to use flowers, or if you want to put a kite, you can do whatever kind of scene that you want on here. I am actually going to cut a little piece of green paper just to kind of pretend to be grass down here. And this is the fun part. So you guys can do whatever you want. You don't have to follow me. I'm going to cut a little 1-inch strip of this. Actually, I'm going to do 1 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I want to make some grass. And if I had brought a grass die, then I might die cut it, but I'm just going to tear it. Just to create a little kind of meadow look. That was meadow, not metal. I'm not enunciating very well today. And this is going to go here over top of my acetate. I'm only doing one side of my acetate. If you don't like the back side showing through, by all means, you could do the same piece on the back side. And now I'm going to put my leaf on the ground. So I have die cut this out. And the intention with these dies is that they are a bit of paper piecing. Now I also did one just out of pattern paper. So I cut the background out of pattern paper, and very easily I can just layer on the outline die. I'm going to do this kind of for a background one, but then I want to do a more detailed one. So I've cut a black background, but I have, you guys can see it over here. I have cut the pieces out of a couple of different greens so that we can have some dimension and some different colors in there. I like using the quickie stick, the quickie glue. The challenge with it is it's hard to see, so you just have to kind of have faith that it is gluing properly, but it's so nice and fine. Art glitter glue is also good for really fine detail if you have that metal tip on the end. There we go. So I've just put glue on all my little outlines. And I'm going to stick it on my background. I had thought about prepping these ahead of time, but then I thought you guys might want to see how they all go together. So I just now trying to get the lighting right so you can see that I've got those leaf lines on there, and now I'm going to pull in some green bits. To puzzle piece and fill in the holes. With these bigger pieces, I can use a bigger glue. Just using my Lawn Fawn glue here. We'll snick that in. So sometimes these paper piecing dies look a little intimidating because they're, oops, get it the right way. You might feel like they have a lot of pieces and you might not have the patience. I will tell you, I am not necessarily a patient crafter. I like quick results. And yet I still find that this type of paper piecing, when you've got it all figured out for you, goes together really quick. So I don't feel impatient with it. If you prefer, you could just cut all of these pieces out of white and then use ink blending to color them in. Or I have also seen some really beautiful pieces done where they've done it out of white and then colored with their Copics or their tri-blends or even watercolor. So look how quickly this has gone together. Now, let me also caveat this with, it's a lot easier if you glue them together right after you die cut them, because it's easier to remember where the pieces go. If you're lucky, like with this red butterfly, when I die cut it out, most of the pieces stayed in place. So I didn't have to worry about what went where and trying to remember what gets stuck in various places. So it is a little bit easier if you're doing this at home and it all kind of goes together right away. But you can see I just put that leaf together really quickly, and look at how using the different papers just gives it some life. My background one, I'm just going to use the pattern paper. Get my glue on. Attach it. So you've got lots and lots of options with these paper piecing dies. So there's my two leaves, because that's just going to kind of go in the background like so. And let me finish getting one of my ladybugs ready. The other one I'm going to use on the front of the card. So one thing to note with this ladybug, I don't know if you can see it very well, there is a little circle, a little dot here in the middle. I tend to be someone who accidentally loses the dots. So I like to use black Nuvo in the dots instead. What glue am I going to use? Let's use. And if you've got a black background, you don't necessarily have to fill in those little dots. It just gives, again, a little bit of dimension. And my other one. But I'm not going to put that Nuvo on until everything is in place. All right, so back to my card. We have our magic invisible panel. So I am going to attach my leaves down here in the bottom right-hand corner. Because it's going on the acetate, I think I'm going to use tape. That's my front one, just because it'll have more of an immediate stick. Or again, if you're looking to hide it, you could always just put the adhesive on the piece that is going to be hidden by that grass. So there's one little leaf. And two little leaves. And now I'm going to have my little ladybug flying down into land on the leaf. Like so. And that's where the magic really happens. So now when I open up that card, it really looks like he's flying. You could always put your sentiment on here as well. Maybe it's a little kite that's flying, or you could put it down here on the grass. But there is your magic invisible pop-up. Ta-da! And like I said, if you don't like the fact that the backside is showing, I could easily just take maybe just the silhouette of this guy and cover him up, or even another full butterfly. I could put more leaves on the other side. It just depends on what your preference is for perfection. Okie dokie, let's just finish him off because he needs a front. I was going to use this Enjoy the Little Things cut apart, and I'm going to put another butterfly, or not butterfly, my goodness, ladybug on the front here, but I need some paper. So I have, this is just the back of one of the cut aparts. I'm going to trim this down for the front cover. And maybe, you know what, let's put some red behind it. So my front is going, or my pattern is going to be 4 by 5 1/4, just like the inside. And my red is going to be 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I should be able to get it out of that. So 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, which is one little tick before the half. And remember, I'm saying this as much for myself as I am saying it for you ladies. This is a landscape card. So when we put our sentiment on, we have to make sure that that goes landscape as well. Oh, I love that idea of doing Christmas cards with Santa's sleigh. Absolutely. Anything with balloons, so birthday cards with balloons floating would look super fun. This is where your imagination can really, and no pun intended, take flight, and you can really play around with what goes in that invisible sky. All right, let me trim down I'm actually going to turn this 3x4 journaling card into a 3x3 square so that it'll fit really nicely on that front cover. So let's take a little bit off the top. And 3 inches. Oh, I know what I was going to do. And everybody will be shocked that I'm doing this because I'm not a doily person. I grabbed my doilies today because I'm going to put a little doily behind. Let's do green. I know, shock and awe. Doilies, doilies. Good question, Susan. The question is, would lighter cardstock or even patterned paper work better in the mechanism to reduce the bulk? You could absolutely give it a try. There is enough, by doubling it up, I think there is enough layers in it to still hold it upright. And really, we just want it that when the card opens, it lifts so you see that magic moment. Definitely give it a try. This is Lawn Fawn cardstock, and I find it is not very bulky, but definitely you do want to stay on that lighter side. There we go. Okay, I'm going to round these corners. I've got that stuck down. Let's do that doily in behind. So when I do corners and doilies and that kind of thing, I actually like to stick it this way first before sticking it on the card. That way I make sure that my pieces go together the way I want it to. And then I can attach this to my card as a full unit. I find it just holds things a little bit better that way. So I'm going to do this. And I need one more ladybug piece. So let me get those red bits. In place. And cap up my glue. And oh, I do need this glue. Ta-da! So there's our cover. I can put some bling on it. I did bring some little gold. Or maybe I can just use my black Nuvo, which I just buried here. So you'll notice I haven't done the black Nuvo yet. Always best to leave your Nuvo drops till the end. And definitely, if you're going to do the inside ones, do them first, leave them to dry, then move on. Margaret is asking about the doilies. These are Doodlebug doilies. We have mini ones as well as large ones in a couple of different colors. Love, love, love the bright colors of Doodlebug. So that always just adds a little bit of something without being too complicated. Just making sure I've got all those questions. There we go. I think we're good. So you can see that even though I didn't put the little dots in there, the ladybug still looks fantastic. But since we're finished, I will go in and do the later one, the inner ones later. I'm just going to put a little weight here on my card because now it's bulky, so it's going to pop up. And this is where I can then add my Nuvo drops to my butterfly spots. You could also do white if you wanted your butter, and I keep seeing butterflies. Oh my word. I think I should have a butterfly jar instead of a swear jar. You could use white dots on your ladybugs as well. You could use other colors if you wish. I just think it really gives it some nice shine and dimension. I'll see if I can hold it up. Just makes them a little bit more. There we go. But because they are self-leveling, you want to try and make sure that your card is going to stay flat while it dries. So definitely put something to weight it down. So there you have it, ladies. That is our invisible pop-up mechanism. I would love to see what you make, what different, whether you're using butterflies or ladybugs, and whether you get the word right or not, whether you're using kites or balloons or birds or flowers. Please feel free to share with me. You can post them on our Facebook page. You can post them in the Papercrafts Inner Circle, where we get all kinds of people posting their inspirations and their creations. It's lots of fun to see what everybody makes. Or if you want to keep it private, but you still want to share, you can always email me at customerservice@craftersworkshop.ca. Thank you so much for tuning in.